What's going on, fellow A+ers? It's your boy Adam Perez. We're back once again with a brand new episode review as we're set to go ahead and tackle Andor Season 2, episodes number 4 through 6. Welcome, Force users, to our brand new episode review as we are here live once again every Thursday for you guys at 10 p.m. Central Time. It is not just myself here, but we have 3/4 of the High Council here today. Unfortunately, Crystal's not able to join us. She unexpectedly had some other duties she had to certainly take care of today. But you got the boys. It's a boys show tonight, fellas. It's good to see everybody. Stuart, you weren't here last week, man, but let me just say it's good to have you back. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing really good. Really sad I couldn't be there last week because, man, that was a great start to the season, as you saw from the notes that I gave you. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about these next 3 episodes because I definitely got quite a bit to say about them.
I'm eager to hear your thoughts, buddy. So thank you so much for joining us today. Will, good to see your face again here, man. We're a week separated from Andor, 3 new episodes. How you holding up since the last time we talked, man? You doing all right?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks again for having me. It's great to be part of the Jedi Council. Hopefully, we'll have the full council together at some point during these summaries. But yeah, it's great to be back. And like Stuart said, I'm really enjoying the journey to the destination that we know will happen with Rogue One. But as we were just talking about The Last of Us before here at a pre-show, sometimes it's more about the journey than the destination. I'm definitely feeling that way with Andor.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think especially with these 3 episodes that we wind up having in here, definitely a journey for sure. If anything, I will say I'm really eager to see how the last 2 arcs of this show certainly wraps up, and afterwards, I cannot wait to rewatch Rogue One. And see how differently it certainly hits me. It's been a minute since I've watched it. It's probably been at least maybe like 2 years since I last watched it. So I definitely want to go ahead and check it out now that I have all this new information kind of going into it. But yeah, hopefully next week, hopefully, Stuart, tell your boss, don't call me in, buddy. Don't call me in because I'm doing an Andor review. Hopefully we can get the whole group in here, hopefully for like the last 2 arcs. But we'll definitely see how it goes. But look, ladies and gentlemen, as we go through these episodes, remember, these are simply our A+ opinions. We always want to know yours as we're discussing some of these topics, some of the arcs, some of the characters. Let your thoughts be known in the live chat, as we are currently live right now, or leave a comment after this video certainly wraps up, because we love having conversations with you guys here. So let's kick this off here. Stuart, since you were not here last week, we're not going to do a episode by episode breakdown. If anything, we'll give our overall thoughts on sort of the 3 episode arc that we wind up having in here. Overall, what are your overall thoughts for episodes 4, 5, and 6 so far?
I think if I had to sum up these 3 episodes in the simplest way possible, I'd say these 3 episodes of Andor were probably my favorite James Bond movie. Because this one definitely took a more espionage approach to the whole thing, and I think it actually like worked really well for this kind of storyline that you got. And I like how it was almost like you got an espionage like kind of perspective from both the Empire and the and of course the rebellion as well. And you know, and again, I love that it continues everything from what we already established, which is that the rebellion is still pretty disorganized. There's, you know, Luthen is incredibly smart, but he's also, you know, making the kind of same mistakes that the Empire makes, which he's starting to like not see the people that work for him as like, you know, people. He's seeing them kind of like as pawns, and as, you know, Andor himself tells him, you know, we're not your droids. And I like, you know, kind of like seeing how that's probably going to become an issue later on in like the next arc that we're going to. But I also really like seeing how much it's really focusing on developing the characters, you know, not just our main characters with, you know, Andor and Bix. Bix really just dealing with a lot of trauma and dealing with it in a very human way that you don't normally see in a show like Star Wars. But yeah, I think But overall, just a great continuation of the story. And I again love kind of the shift that it kind of takes in genres. Like kind of we went from the last episode, which very much it had kind of the heist thing going on at the very beginning, but then after that, it really felt very much like character oriented political drama. And now we're going for that to kind of spy espionage, still with the political drama, because that's something that I think Andor has been doing a really good job at.
Yeah, I gotta say there were definitely moments in these episodes that I'm just like, is Luthen losing a step? Like, are we losing this man? As this rebellion certainly goes along, I definitely have my questions in regards to Luthen this week for sure. So I'm glad that you brought all that up. Will, what about you, man? Episodes 4 through 6. Any overall thoughts after watching these
Yeah,
3 episodes?
very similar to Stewart. I really enjoyed the spycraft in these episodes between the two, the rebellion and the proto rebellion, I guess, and the Empire. The especially Stewart said James Bond. I got that vibe, but also I was thinking Mission Impossible, especially when uh, Cassian got the mission, and we had the very Mission Impossible themed walk with the, you choose this mission if you accept it. Uh, vibe going there whenever he was getting the brief as he was going to Ghorman. So there was that piece. I definitely really enjoyed that. Of course, seeing the relation, seeing Cyril, given because we had a time jump, of course, and we knew that was happening. But now we're 3 years Battle Before Yavin, just seeing where everyone has where everyone is now with this time jump. And one of the things about the spycraft I thought worked really well was the way they positioned Cyril in this episode, in this batch of episodes, because especially whenever he's talking to his mother and very bold, bashing the Empire and stuff, and it really carries forward some of the things that we saw in the first batch, where the Empire was going to help move forward the factions, with all the propaganda that they were doing with the film and their Ministry of Enlightenment, and also the plan, that Krennic and Dedra talked about. We saw that plan in motion, but it really worked well the way the episode started out, with having Cyril there. It's like, wait a minute, you know is he turning, so that was really, really good. Completely agree with Luthen. I think he even references how he's I don't know if he's lost a step, but he's definitely it's getting harder as their groups grow and things are growing. It's getting harder and harder for him to maintain control, which I think was another aspect of these episodes with the rebellion. What especially when we see what's going on with Saul, because Saul's the wild card with everything. We also see Luthen try to maintain control over Cassian and Bix, so we have things there, and of course on the Empire side, we saw the parallel where they were talking about rounding up too many people and in the ISB meeting. So those were some of the big overall themes I saw in these episodes.
Yeah, the Cyril stuff in the beginning of episode 4 was like, I was thinking the same thing too. I was like, oh man, is he actually turning? Is this all part of an overall plan that he's kind of working behind the scenes? I really like how kind of all that stuff really came together to kind of see Cyril, Dedra, and I can never remember his other name, Part Sands or some shit like that. I wrote it down. Yeah, I probably never know how to pronounce it.
Yeah,
Partagaz. How do you
yeah,
pronounce it?
yeah. I think it's part of gas, I believe. Yeah.
Partagas. Yeah, I like seeing how all that kind of came together too. For me, I one of the things that I really enjoyed about this arc, this felt like a really proper build up to sort of like a cinematic culmination. Whereas like the first 3 episodes, it started out with like jumping into the mission, and as Stuart said, then breaking down some of the character exposition and exploration. Whereas this really kind of took its time, I thought, the first 2 episodes to give us some really great sort of character work, the political landscape, how much things have changed over the past year, and then really building up to an episode 6 that had my just like anxiety through the roof. I mean, I felt like just the idea of them being on that type of mission, the back and forth. I thought the editing and the pacing of the last episode was great in the sense of several different people kind of on their own mission, whether that be what's happening in Ghorman or the idea of Luthen, and the woman that works with him, trying to get the listening device off, the back and forth, some of the dialogue between Krennic and Mon Mothma all at the same time. Like my leg, I got like that restless leg syndrome, and it was just out of control for this episode. But it's one of those things where while yes, the episode itself is intense, it I don't know if it's like that if we don't have the proper buildup that we get from an episodes 4 and 5 done as well as it certainly was for just a great payoff in here. So this felt very much like not only its own contained arc, but sort of like when they say, oh, you're going to get like 4 movies in one season. Like this felt like watching a movie kind of unfold in front of me. And so, yeah, I was a really big fan of this batch of episodes we got this week.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up about the Krennic and Mon Mothma scenes there at the end with the last episode. I mean, that was just like this poetry as far as the conflict between these two dynamic characters, and this, the disdain for one another was just oozing off the
it's
scene,
palpable,
off the screen. It was just like, that was also one of the highlights for me. But but you're right. I mean, the tension is just ratcheting up, and of course, we do get more. They pulled in one thing I like too was they pulled in something from Legends with the Tarkin massacre.
Yes, I thought I honestly thought that this was leading to sort of the Ghorman massacre, but the fact that they utilize it as something that happened, I think they said like 16 years ago or something like that, and they use it like as a memorial in the middle of the town. I'm glad that they managed to find a way to include it into this story.
Yeah.
I also like it because we know that the massacre that gets referenced in Rebels doesn't happen until the next batch of episodes 1 year later. So it's kind of like funny. So there's like 2 Ghorman massacres that have happened. One that they brought from Legends, which I really appreciate, and then of course now we're gonna like actually get the details on what happened, because they're usually like pretty vague whenever it's been brought up in the past.
Indeed. Yeah. And I know Tony Gilroy talked about, we've heard, I think, I don't know if it was declassified, they finally have been doing the after show, which with the official after shows with Star Wars, and that I think he referenced, to that point, Stuart. Yeah, he did reference it's always been one of these things that's been referenced, but he really wanted to like show it, as far as that really big event to like make, to your point, Adam, why the rebellion and why all these things happen down the line, to give them more depth than what we've had in the past. So really looking for the next batch, definitely looking forward to seeing how all that unfolds.
So I'm glad you brought up the idea of the Tarkin massacre. Enlighten me a little bit too, because while I did love Legends, I didn't read all the books or know everything about it. So are there 2 massacres that happen in this place?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, so I think the Tarkin one was where he it was, if I recall, his ship
landed on people.
500 protesters.
Protesters, yeah.
That's so crazy.
Which totally feels like something he would do.
Yeah, exactly. And
I was always under the impression that they were the same thing, that the Tarkin and Ghorman massacre were the same thing, but that's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy.
I think originally, I think it was just that they originally changed it for Star Wars Rebels, and now with Andor, they're including both.
Oh God, poor Ghorman.
It's like they suffer in both universes.
That's so crazy.
Exactly. So I'm glad. Yeah. So I really, one of the things that the Disney shows have been able to do is utilize some of the, pull in some of the legend stuff. into live action, and blending, recognizing, given that Rebels is canon, so being able to, and I was wondering how they were going to reference the things that we saw in Rebels in live action. Will we see the ghost? I don't know, but I would love it if we do, if we see the Phoenix group. But at the same time, it's just really cool to see how again, just growing this universe, and also like in this, speaking of universe, seeing I mentioned Saul earlier, and whenever we were on, I can't remember, I think at Dahar, I think it's the planet, or Dohor, um, seeing the base that we'll later see
Yes.
in the sequel prequels.
Yeah, I was like,
Sequel
that's the
trilogy.
same. I was like, that's the same location, isn't it? Was
Yeah,
it from the
yeah,
Force Awakens or something like that
Yeah.
when they made up at
yeah,
the last base? That blew my
yeah,
mind. I was like, that's crazy.
yeah, yeah.
So
So it just really, just again, just I think what I really been enjoying about this series is, and I think we talked about this, I know on our podcast on Scene a Nerd, but also I think here with you guys, is just um how intentional Tony Gilroy is when he utilizes Easter eggs in this show. It's very intentional. It's not just like the gee whiz wow factor. It's, if we're gonna have a reference to something, it's gonna mean something to the plot.
Speaking of Easter eggs, something I've noticed, and I think other people have been pointing it out too, is that there are a lot of like in the background, you can just see like just random objects, even in the art exhibit, especially
Mhm.
a lot of things resembling the Death Star.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
there. It's like kind of cool, like visual foreshadowing, I guess, of what you can see, like the Empire is really doing there on the planet of Ghorman. So a really cool way to kind of like set the pieces there, not like canonically setting the pieces there, but more, just visually kind of like setting
Yeah.
it there for the audience. So we as the audience like know what's going to be coming. I also really love the whole thing with Saw Gerrera. So that this was actually a point I had to rewatch the episode because I was, or not rewatch the whole episode. I had to rewatch some of the scenes with Saw Gerrera because I
Mhm.
actually couldn't tell like what his like true intentions were. Like if he like there was a brief moment where he had exposed the one guy as being like he was an Imperial spy, and this is proof. And I had to rewind to find out if he like stuck that in his shirt or something to see if like he had like purposely planted
like
on it,
planted
it
it.
on him
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
like maybe he wants to keep the crew short because shorter crew easier to keep track of. But I do think that like yeah no like watching it a second time that he was probably a Imperial spy because the whole scene that kind of like led Saw to coming up to that conclusion, the guy was really pushy and trying to get a very
Yeah.
specific location from him, so it kind of makes sense that he came to that conclusion. But I do love how like this whole thing with him is that they confirm to us like he is not the same Saw Gerrera from the Clone Wars. He has been through so much, and he is like literally like destroying his own brain like willingly, like with that gas. But I like how
Yeah.
he's still as smart as always. Well, for the most part, he's as smart as he was, but he's crazy. He has that crazy edge to him too. But that
Yeah.
still doesn't mean he's like not like on top of everything, which I think was really a really cool way to write him. And then I love that kind of like speech that he gives of revolution is not for the sane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
thought I
Yeah.
thought I thought that was great too. It just it for me, it definitely sort of confirms like I was always thinking to myself, like, how does Saw Gerrera get to the point that he's in Rogue One where like he can barely
Mhm.
breathe, he's got his freaking oxygen tank, and it's because he's
Mhm.
been sniffing Rhino the whole entire time. Like that
Yep.
man literally has destroyed his lungs this entire time. So I thought that was a
Yeah.
really sort of a really great nod, and it just made me laugh. I was just like, dude, this is what you do. It just reminds me of like being as a kid. Like I used to love the smell of gasoline when my parents would go fill up the tanks. I would roll down the window and just take a really big swift. So yeah, so shout out to all the kids that love smelling gasoline out there in the world. But that's
Yeah.
what it reminded me of. I was like, damn,
Yeah.
he just took it to the extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole
Yeah.
time I'm thinking, oh, he must have suffered a terrible accident. No, no, he
No,
did that to
he's
himself
He
willingly.
did it
sniffing
to himself.
fumes. He's just
Yeah.
sniffing fumes
Yeah.
over there.
I'm glad you also brought up about the spy thing, because the way it was, the way, there was a couple of ways you could take it, because I thought, yeah, he could be a spy, or that he just saw that at this point, he because Saul is crazy, He just felt that he was annoyed by him asking all these questions, and it really at the point after Willman trained him, one of them was expendable, and maybe he just was just like, you know, I think it probably is. He probably was a spy, but at the same time, he was just like, to your point, Stuart, he's just like, we we have a finite amount of resources, and we just, this guy is just for whatever reason, and it was the doubt or whatever. So it's just like, nah, we we'll keep Woolman around.
I
But I
felt
think
like that.
Woolman, yeah.
Oh, go ahead about
No, I
women.
was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna ask you if so. Did y'all take it at the end there with Woolman? Did he die from the when he sucked the breathe in
I
the
don't.
Rylon
No,
or
I
I
don't
think
think
that was
so.
just him deciding that, like, he wanted to be part of that. That was him, like,
Yeah.
deciding he willingly wanted to be
yeah,
part of Saw Gerrera's group. He was no longer there, like, just as a prisoner. He's like,
yeah.
no, I actually want to be part of this.
Yeah, I just the way it ended. I just like he just seemed like he was. Maybe that's just it. His first high, and that's you just really look like you're about to be on
Yeah.
death beach there. Yeah,
We all
Yeah.
remember our first bong rip.
Yeah. I think.
yeah,
Yeah, that was definitely woman for sure. But yeah, that's what I took away too. Stu was like he just kind of embraced the idea like this is sort of like his new family in a sense, like
mhm,
he's going to be joining that aspect of the rebellion. But yeah, that concept of trust was very much underlining in these
mhm,
several episodes. The idea of who can you trust. I really love the sequence in here of when Cassian does get to Ghorman, and the lady from the Ghorman cell approaches him, and he starts like kind of questioning like why she's talking to him. You're rushing, you don't know anything about me, sort of thing. Questioning the idea of like where they're getting their intel from, just that idea of like not giving too much away of who you are, who you're connected to. It just felt really prevalent in these 6 episodes, in a sense of like paranoia right now is really running rampant, and you want to kind of protect yourself and the people that you're with without giving away too much information. Like even when we had Vel and Cinta join in, even the people in the Gorman cell are like kind of questioning them too, and to a certain extent. So it felt like it was just an underlining theme in here, in a sense of be careful who you trust for sure.
yeah.
Mhm.
Be careful who you trust, and also, it's very interesting seeing Cassian be the voice of restraint with the Gorman crew, because Luthen calls him out on it, but to that point of trust, but also maybe Cassian sort of seeing the lessons learned from Ferrex, because they were very reckless in their engagement with the Empire, and definitely led to the death of a lot of folks, their own Ferrex. Um so there was that aspect as far as the tactical piece, but also uh, I found that the Gorman front were because I get I think they based them off of just sort of French resistance
Yes.
from the Second World War. But also, so there's that piece, especially their language and stuff. But just overall, they still had the comforts of their world, and versus like we see like Luthen, we see like for example Cassian and Vix. I mean, they're like living from safe house to safe house. These this the folks, the Mormon front, yes, they are a resistance, but at the same time, that sense of sacrifice of of themselves is just not there. So they're kind of sort of an in between place. They remind me of like Mon Mothma, where she's still in the Senate and has her prestige and power, but she's still working behind the scenes. These folks are like they want to be they want to be like hard ass freedom fighters, but at the same time they still are keeping the comforts of their fashion district, and he's got the nice little shop there in the plaza, and the commerce is still going out. So on the one hand, Cassian's telling them like, hey, be careful with like, transmissions and stuff. And they're like, yeah, but we all like spy on each other for, to get a competitive edge in our market here. So, so it's just a very interesting. I was just very fascinated about how they set, I guess, the rich Ghormans versus some of the other people, especially like when they're in that in the town hall, the sort of middle class or lower, less affluent Ghormans, as you saw that structure, that class structure sort of at play on that planet as well, as far as just what people are willing to give up, and what people are willing, the sort of social structure, you know, on these planets, and especially a planet that's right on the edge. It's not in the outer rim, but this is more of an inner world, and and why the Empire like targeted it as far as being a good example, as far as to do the propaganda machine and all that kind of stuff, to raise the stakes about why these rebels are such a threat.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Mon Mothma stuff, because that kind of reminded me too about like the last arc that we had, when I think it was episode 3, when she has that conversation with Luthen, and she doesn't fully understand or realize what Luthen's trying to imply, in the sense of maybe having to kill homeboy because he's trying to blackmail in a certain extent. And she says something, and he's like, well, that's lucky for you, in the
Lucky for
sense
you,
like
yeah.
you've never had to get your hands dirty in that regards to truly understand sort of what that means. And I think the Ghorman cell realizes that with the death of Cinta, in here, in a sense of having gotten his hands dirty, even though it was an accident, but realizing just maybe how unprepared for the moment emotionally, and just truly unprepared for the moment that they really were, in a sense. Like,
Yeah.
there is a difference between wanting to, and this is where I love the conversation between Luthen and Cassian, in a sense. Like, this is not a moment to be weak or um what's the word I'm looking for? It's just they're definitely very sort of unprepared, and they want to
Yeah.
certainly take on more. And you can definitely see their inexperience kind of taking play. The idea that they want to rush, that they want to, regardless of what the outcome is, they just want to do sort of something. And I just really like that pushback that Cassian and Luthen both had in here, and their perspectives of the Gorman cell, because at some point in time, like, you got to start somewhere, right? And but you also have to be a little bit more prepared for that. And so to kind of see, like you said, Will, the idea of maybe Cassian being a little bit more um I don't, the protective's not the word, but he doesn't want to pull the trigger immediately. He's
Yeah.
a little bit more
He finishes what needs
concerned.
to be done.
And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
like
whereas Luthen is just like, this is what we signed up for, sort of thing, right? Putting things on at risk, even though, regardless of what the outcome might be.
And I think like one thing that also was like kind of a factor with like with Andor's like overall decision was like trying to happen to be there for Bix. I think like part of it
Yeah.
was that I think he
Yeah.
knew that like even though this was not a place that had fighters ready who knew what they were doing when it came to fighting the Emperor, he was right in every way of saying like you're rushing this, you're getting into this too fast. But he was wrong in the sense of like
His reasoning, right?
yeah, exactly, him not even
Yeah.
wanting to offer his own assistance. I do think that he could have easily helped organize them, just like the two that Luthen brings in after he decides to bail. Like, I think he really could have helped out with the two of them, with helping them become a more organized kind of rebellion. But of course, I think like the big thing was that his mind was too focused on Bix, so he was just kind of looking for any excuse he could to just get out of there and say, I can't do this, pretty much.
Yeah, I don't want to say Cassian felt a little bit softer, but it felt like he was doing things, like you said, in the sense of protecting Bix more than
Yeah.
actually trying to be
Yeah.
a part of the rebellion in here. And I think you can see that really early from episodes 4 and 5, even leading up to it, to some of his decisions, like the conversation that they wind up having. Is the idea of like, are you not doing this because of me, in the sense you're trying to protect me and look out for me, sort of thing. And I think she does a good job of trying to bring back that notion of like we're at war, you know, like this is what we signed up for. Like we may die at some point in time, but this is what we signed up for. So just that mindset of trying to remember what you're in this for instead of necessarily feeling like you're a protector of somebody, because at the end of the day, that's really one, that's probably going to get you killed, but then two, you're not useful to anybody at that point.
Yeah, and it's, you know, thinking about that protector and role and the connections, because, you know, I think about Cassian and Bix, and, you know, and Cassian being more protective of her, but then when Val and Cinta are reunited, you know, when we last saw them, you know, those Cinta, you know, she was telling Val, like, you know, basically giving her Val the speech that Luthen was given to Cassian. You know, it's all about the mission.
Right. Like
Whereas
we'll
now,
get to this after it's done.
yeah, but now, after, you know, clearly something happened in that 1 year. I don't know if something sideways happened when she was killing Tay, or what, but, you know, she's had a change of heart now, and so, you know, we did see that, we did see people's motivations and their, yeah, and just sort of their, I don't want to say priorities, but their sense of like connections with other people shift, you know, to like, you know, thinking in the first trilogy, you know, whenever it was, you know, we saw it was all about, you know, Empire Strikes Back is like Luke was like, mission be damned, learning the ways of the Force be damned. I'm gonna, you know, it's all about my friends. It's about connection. I'm gonna go to Cloud City, rush off, save them, because, you know, they're my friends, they're my family. Where, you know, and we see that similar dynamic here in these episodes too, where like Cassian now is just like, I gotta make sure Bix is okay, and you know, we see the evolution from Cinta from season 1 to season 2, where she's now like, it's not all about the mission, it's, you know, it is about us. So I do like those. I think that's one of the awesome things about this show. It just really just explores relationships and people dynamics, and even in these very trying times, as far as, you know, growing this rebellion against the you know, the Empire. Um, you know, we're exploring people's change and growth, and it's very, you know, natural. Um, but yeah, so this was sort of my thoughts of that, about that.
And I think that's something that Luthen eventually recognizes by the end of the episode too. And I say that because, you know, after he has that conversation with Cassian, and he realizes just how connected. I mean, he already knows how connected Bix and Cassian is, and how Bix is kind of, I want to say weighing him down per se, but it's definitely keeping him from having his mind straight, you know. But I think the importance of their relationship is something that Luthen recognizes, and I say that because he does give them a mission, and
Mhm.
I think the mission is done off screen, and that's the sense of realizing and recognizing that Dr. Gorst is back in town, and sends that. I was under the impression that he sends them on the mission to
Yeah,
kill Dr. Gorst, and I think
yeah.
it's all in a sense of realizing I need Bix healthy, and if this
Hmm.
is going to get Bix straight mentally and back on her feet, then that means in turn I get Cassian back in his on his feet and a little bit more focused.
Yeah.
And so to me, it felt like a changing of the tide in the sense of trying to get two of his best people, if you will, sort of back in the fold and refocus by the end of this episode.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that, because they, whatever they do, they do see the signal, um, and you know, and then we do get that mission later, but also this thing, you know, but also, you know, with those relationships and stuff too. You know, Cassian was slipping because, you know, he broke the code. I mean, he like went to Luthen's shop.
Yeah, yeah.
Luthen, like, looked at him like, what the hell are you doing here? So
It's like a
to your
crazy
point,
ex-boyfriend or something, like a crazy
yeah,
boyfriend or
yeah.
something.
So to your point, I mean, I think he, you know, Luthen did realize, like, oh, I gotta, you know, yeah, I gotta get these people
You know,
back in place.
Al, what's up, Al? So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
you don't visit Mexican man's wife when you're not there. Yeah, bro. You don't just come
yeah,
randomly coming into somebody else's house.
yeah. That was a, yeah, for sure.
That's how he
But
approached it, for sure.
yeah.
That's true.
Oh man, that's great.
Good to see
But
you in here.
yeah,
Thank you, super.
yeah, that's great. That's a great comment. But But yeah, that's that. But it's funny. Luthen though is also a little bit of a hypocrite because he has Kayla. So
Yeah, and I think that's actually one thing I hope he kind of realizes in between like episode 6 and 7 is that like he wouldn't have been able to do that without relying on the person that he always relies on, and then even then she wouldn't have been able to do that without the help of the spy they kind of have on the inside that they were just they and I love what coincidences can often be really poorly written in TV shows, but I always got a soft spot for big coincidence when it's acknowledged within the show itself. And so I think the way they kind of acknowledge that, like he just happened to be given that promotion at that perfect time to go to that party, so he was able to help them with retrieving the bug that they had left on that art piece. I think it was just kind of like perfect how the stars aligned for that. But like as like Luthen and her were like leaving, and they even make the joke about should have assassinated Krennic while we were there. I think that was him kind of realizing it was his connection with her that really helped make that whole like mission a success. And hopefully that's something he kind of learned or realizes like in the next upcoming arc. That Bix and Andor are best when they're together. That Bell and Senta, yeah, that Bell and Senta were better when they were together. Assuming Senta is still alive in the next arc, because we don't know for sure because they are getting her to a hospital, but we'll see how that plays out definitely. But hopefully Luthen does become a little more like again, kind of like quoting Andor here, he stops treating them like droids, basically. The main thing, is that even though obviously you got to have a chain of command, you still got to respect the people under your command, and hopefully that's something that Luthen learns within the next arc.
Yo, Cinta's dead, bro. She's dead.
Oh, really?
At least I'm under the impression
yeah,
that she is.
Okay.
I don't. But I do. I'm glad we brought up. I'm glad we pivoted to that death, because I think again just showing the growth, how characters react, because I think, and showing how people grow over the course of the rebellion, because I think Val's reaction to it, I think if that had happened a year prior or something like that, that kid would have been he would have been killed. They would have just shot him right then and there in the street. But her reaction, bit restrained, and just like, look, this is on you. This death is, don't cry. If don't listen. You should have listened to us. That's usually it. But again, it shows the immaturity and the of the group, not immaturity, and that, well, part of it is just the young eager beavers who just want to, like, don't fully probably grasp what they're getting into. But two, following orders. I mean, they were very, very clear that we're the experienced ones here. We'll be the ones armed with blasters, and then this is, because you didn't listen to us. We lost a member. We lost a member of the group because it was a completely avoidable death. Not only him, but also the other young lady. I can't remember the daughter of the leader of the cell. I mean, she left her post as well whenever
to
go
help
out
that
the
lady. Yeah.
So it's just so many. To your point, I mean, just so many things that just broke down there, that that I think we're learning lessons for them all, as far as just following orders. And it really does pick up on some of the themes that we saw with the rebel group that was on Yavin. That so I like, again, as I said at the beginning, it really is the journey to see to that ultimate destination, to because that I'm really appreciating about this show, that the rebellion just didn't come out boom right out of the gate, just hitting everything on all cylinders. I did see a couple of things in the chat though too about the bury your gay trope. I mean, I can see where some people are upset about that, because they finally do acknowledge their relationship openly right before she dies. But I it's a very, very valid point, but I don't know if it really.
I don't
For me
necessarily
in
feel.
this sense.
Yeah, I don't know if the only reason why I say this, because even though, we kind of already knew how they felt about each other
Yeah.
in the first season. Just the idea that they didn't necessarily express it in a sexual manner, that we get to see them have that bond on the screen. but I think we can tell the underlining relationship and the meaning and what they want out of each other all the way from the first season. So I think their storyline is just very much sort of continued up until this point. It's not like they're just now coming out and embracing it. I think we kind of already knew that they were, but I guess maybe the idea of showcasing it in that way hits people different, or they appreciate it a little bit more. But to me, I always understood what their relationship is and what they wanted from each other. But I would agree. I don't, we don't get that if season one isn't built up the way that it is for the payoff in here. So I don't know. I can see why people would have a problem, but I guess for me it doesn't hit that way. But I'm not part of that community, so maybe I don't fully understand that way.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it's a problem because it's like overdone in a lot of media. But I think that if we're looking at this in a vacuum, that it was a very well written scene. If we're looking at it in a vacuum, not comparing it to how it's kind of like been done, with as a common trope. I think like one thing that frustrates you, and in a good writing kind of way, kind of frustrated me about the whole thing is that like, it was a mission that the Empire wanted them to succeed at. The Empire was not interfering with any way, shape, or form. And he still managed to get someone killed on it. And that's what I think works so well about the scene. Like, it makes you, as someone watching it, just so frustrated, like, because there was no reason it should have gone wrong. So, but it's like, I totally understand if people were kind of like upset, again, for going with that trope, because it is done a lot, or done to death. But like for me, again, I think it was just I was watching this like kind of again just watching it in the vacuum, trying to separate it from other medias that have done it for like kind of ill intention. And just I think that the intention of why they did it, the motivation behind why it happened in this, I think it just works for, again, just the type of show that Andor is, with them really wanting to show you how big the stakes are and how dangerous it is to just kind of rush into things.
Yeah, but it is one of those things too where it is interesting that Luthen sort of had a backup plan, or at least had something sort of ready to go, realizing that the Cassian stuff wasn't going to work out. Like just his transmission. What's her name? To Kayla? What's the woman that is that his wife? I'm assuming Luthen's wife.
I don't know if it's his wife, but it's definitely the his main I guess co-lead for sure.
Well, I can never remember her name, but the transmission that he has with her, in a sense of like, this was a waste of time sort of thing, or this was a wasted component or something, like just the coded messages in the sense of like, Cassian didn't work out. Did you deliver the other pieces that I need you to? And then we've got Val and Senta kind of already there, almost like he really wanted something to happen on Ghorman, regardless whether or not Cassian was going to be like, clearly Cassian was the one that he wanted to kind of do that, but he also himself had a sort of a backup plan, in the sense of he really wanted it to happen regardless if it was rushed or not. And it's just really unfortunate that somebody had to die. I'm glad you brought that up, Stuart, the idea that the Empire wanted that to just go smoothly, and they still managed to F it up for themselves.
I mean, I was as Cyril was watching it and everything was just going beat by beat, he was because thinking about that whenever his plan, and when and Partagas like tells him, great job, Mr. Karn, and he's just like, this is the happiest day of my life, and Dedra was just like Dedra, she's so she is such a sociopath that she just didn't even. She was, I'm happy for you, but
it took a lot. It took a lot for her to say that.
And just their relationship again, it just so creeps. It's so creepy to begin with, but again, it's just so but the
I
thing
did love
that
I did love
what
that.
they're. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Stuart. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say this just popped in my head. You know what their relationship reminds me of? Saddam Hussein and Satan from South Park, specifically from the South Park movie. Like they're both like just terrible people, but like there's something kind of intriguing about their relationship. I don't know.
It is intriguing. I mean, he gets, they've been separated for however long, a year, whatever it is, and she's like, we have an hour.
Turn the lights off. Turn the lights off.
The look on his face, he was just like, two. One is
He's like, I'll take
he
it.
was yeah, I'll take it. One, but two, he also just got he got aroused by the sense that she had him followed because he just
That's so weird.
he's just so desperate for that just being ordered around. She just basically stepped in the role of his mother. I mean, I'm not getting any Oedipus like vibes or anything with Cyril and his mom, but but at the same time, he definitely likes to be, um, you know, clearly he likes to be dominated.
Yeah, he definitely likes to he loves being told what to do and loves to believe that it's for a good cause, as we kind of
Mhm.
see the way he treats the empire as a whole, like the way he looks up to higher authority. So not even just in the bedroom, I mean even in his career.
Yeah,
He definitely just is that kind of guy that just wants to be told what to do and wants to be told that his job is going to make the big difference in the long run, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah, if anything, I would say I am kind of curious as to what his overall role in all of this is going to be. Because it definitely seems as though they're keeping him out of some aspect of the loop and certainly like using him to a certain extent to be like their pawn in this game.
oh yeah,
But yet at the same time, he clearly wants to be a part of something bigger than what he is. I am assuming I'm trying to figure out what the end game is going to be here between these two. Like, how will he find out what the overall end game is going to be that Dedra and them have certainly set up? Like, I'm under the impression he has no idea that they really are talking about like planet wide
Mhm.
extermination here to that
yeah,
extent.
yeah,
So I am curious how he would respond to something along those lines when he finds out.
yeah.
My prediction currently is that he's gonna find out it's something, but he's gonna find out, that this is gonna be something that'll be terrible for the whole planet, destroy it all, and that, oh man, turns out the people I'm working for actually are evil. He'll have that kind of change of heart, and he'll be really shocked for some reason that Deidre was behind, it the whole time, knew everything about it. I think it's gonna go somewhere in that direction.
I am
Yeah,
fascinated that they are still looking for access, that they're still like she still wants to find Andor. And it feels like that's very much maybe like what his hope is too, but really having no idea that, yeah, I think you might be right, Stuart, in the sense of like world ending sort of thing. I don't know if he necessarily signed up for that or just to, really believes that the Empire is doing good things until it gets pushed to that part. But yeah, I don't know. What were we gonna say, Will?
no, I was just thinking with Stuart's comments about the end game and what Cyril's role in all of this is. I mean, I think it does get to the larger point of all these folks are just pawns in a much bigger game. And as far as he he just wants, I think Cyril just wants his motivations has always just been he's always had this delusion of grandeur. They always talk about like they reference his father, for example, having these grand schemes and plans and stuff. So I think he's always like seeking that out, whether it was whenever it was on Morlocks, when it's part of the, private police force. Now, now he's feeling, he got, he sees, his promotion now that he's the head of standards on this planet. And, he even like put together the ISB coming into his office. That was part of the grand plan, just to like get deeper into the spycraft and stuff. So I think he really does get a big rush out of this, and he's really really enjoying this whole role that he's being put in. And yeah, so I don't know if he's going to turn like I won't spoil anything for Rebels, but I don't know if we're going to have I don't know if we're going to have a turn where he's going to turn to the good side. I think
He's gonna
he's
go
one
along with it.
just going to just ride it out the Empire, but to the bitter end, whatever his end ends up being.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right. That wouldn't
I
surprise me either.
I also just thought of this too. We see the way he is quote unquote standing up to his superiors, obviously for an act to make himself look like he's against the ISB. But I find it so funny how he's good at coming off as like a leader who cares when he's undercover. But then I totally forgot that like early on in the show, we get a moment similar, but this was like him not undercover. It was him like actually trying to make a motivational speech to all the other people like that he was like on patrol with, and they just like barely reacted. They just gave him kind of like a pity laugh. But then here you have him undercover, not meaning anything that he says, and suddenly that's the version of him that's able to like motivate other people. It's like this fake version when he's able to put on a facade, you know?
Yeah.
I do want to talk. I do want to stick with the Ghorman and the Empire stuff here. Because I'm amazed after a year leap here to kind of see the propaganda and how it's begun working for this the community and just the galaxy as a whole. The introduction to Cyril's mom in here, her kind of leaving some breadcrumbs in the sense of how she personally feels about the Ghormans, and she's like, "Oh, I've had these views before," sort of thing. She's like, "Mom, you're just listening to the media too much, right? Like you're just feeding into it, sort of
Galaxy
thing."
Galaxy Fox News.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy to kind of see how the Empire sets up a plan, and a year in, then you've got protesters in the center square of Ghorman trying to push the Empire out. You've got Mon Mothma, who's going to different senators trying to get their support to help out Ghormans, but then they're pushed back in the sense of like they don't want to oppose the Emperor in any way, sort of thing. People are starting to get a little bit frightened. Some people are starting to believe what's kind of out there, and I think she even puts up another thing in the sense of Mon Mothma brings up the idea of like, they're finding all these criminals. Like, are they finding these criminals, or are they making them? The crime rates going up. Like, is it, or are they just fudging these numbers, sort of thing? It's just a crazy. I was gonna say it's a crazy parallels as to like what's kind of going on right now, and the fact that this man literally wrote this, maybe a year or so ago. It's terrifying, but it really showcases like just what Ghorman is really going through and how impactful and powerful propaganda as a tool can really be to mold and shape the narrative, to get what you want out of people, whether that be people to be submissive and not do what they normally would do, to fight back in a sense, and just put a lot of fear mongering within people and kind of get them to have this negative outlook towards a group of people that they used to admire or look up to, sort of. It's just crazy to kind of see the time jump in this sense. I think really works to kind of see just how much has really changed since the last couple of episodes. But I continue to really enjoy seeing this is the political side of what the Empire is trying to do. And like you said, the parallels, Will.
The parallels. I mean, not the bring real world. Well, hell, I'll bring it in because I'm not shy about it.
It's really hard not to when you're talking about the
show. We watch the show. I mean, it's not only historical. We can talk from historical perspectives. For seeing the rise of Nazi Germany and how post-war, they're post the Weimar Republic and everything as far as the propaganda and the various communities. And now we're seeing the historic. Seeing it now with. With our legislation, what I really, whenever Mon Mothma was going to all her various senators and really just trying to get their support, even the Ghorman senator himself, and trying to, and lobby them and try to help them understand. He was like so afraid to cross the Emperor, and I just like, I was just like, man, this is just so many ways we're seeing majority party in our country now to sort of respond to
falling in line.
Falling in line, and it's just sometimes democracies fall, like even though I think back, even though the prequel trilogies had their flaws. I mean, one of the biggest lines that stands out of there is like, here's how democracy dies, not with a shot, I'm paraphrasing, but with thunderous applause. And I'm seeing that, you're seeing that play out in the Star Wars universe, with how the Emperor was able to just, tighten his grip on the Senate to the point that, by the time we get to A New Hope, Tarkin announces that the Senate's been dissolved. And so, so it's just, again, this show is all about the journey with this show and just filling in those gaps.
I love how, like, for the most part, the senators that we see now, under the Empire, they don't. It just comes off as they just don't take their position seriously. They're throwing parties just to celebrate the fact that they have become senators, even though they have done nothing, at all. And they're like patting themselves on the back for doing nothing. And it's just, if that doesn't say anything about real world climates, I don't know what. But I thought that was all brilliant, because then you look at that line in New Hope where he's like, the Emperor is just finishing, had just finished disassembling all of the senates, which means anything from the Republic is now gone. It's easy to see how he was able to get away with that when you look at the newer senators that were being introduced to through that episode.
Yeah, you guys make some really good points. I just continue to be fascinated by it. I'm loving the parallels. It was just too much of a stark, it's just right in our face, but it's just like, God, how do we miss this type of stuff? Like, how are we how do we not pay attention and realize the warning signs when they're sort of right in front of us? And I look, one of the things that I love about Andor, I know some people, or I should just say Star Wars as a whole. I used to have a friend of mine that I still do have this friend, but I had somebody say one time to me, like, I can't remember if it was Andor or if it was just another show that they had, or The Mandalorian or something like that. They're like, it just doesn't feel Star Wars to me. And I was like, well, what is Star Wars to you? And he says, it's lightsabers and it's Jedi and it's Sith sort of thing, right? And I think for me, what I love about Star Wars is, as a galaxy, it's a little bit of everything. It's got a little bit of everything for you. Not only is it lightsabers, Jedi, and Sith, but you got bounty hunters, right? You got the underworld, if you want to focus on that and certainly enjoy. And I love that when it comes to Andor, I was thinking about this. I was like, this feels like House of Cards in the Star Wars universe to a certain extent. Like, just that political sort of drama with great action and spy espionage stuff in it, but like just the idea of the inner workings of politics, the impact that it has on communities, whether that be the outer rim planets, the inner planets, the main planet in the sense of Coruscant. So I get where some people say, like, maybe Andor doesn't feel like Star Wars, or it's not the Star Wars that I want. I get that we all have our own niche of the galaxy that we kind of appreciate a little bit more. But when it comes to Andor, man, I eat the shit up, guys. Like, I really do. I just think it's so. I just think it just allows the galaxy to flesh itself out a little bit more in a sense of motivations for the Empire, and just a fresh reminder as to like why Luke and Han and Leia fought so hard, because of the idea. Like you said last week, the Empire sometimes seems to be very romanticized, but this just kind of allows us to really see just how grotesque and terrible and just cruel that they sort of truly were, and it just adds context for me.
Oh, it totally does. Yeah, but also one thing I did like this about, because I have a friend too where we would talk sometimes about Andor, and he was like, see all these humans walking around, and this week I thought of him, and with all the aliens. I mean, it was like, for the folks who, we didn't have lightsabers and the Force and all that, but as far as just other races and just visually reminder that there's a lot. This is a big galaxy in the Star Wars universe. We did get that diversity this week whenever Mon Mothma was talking. We were at the Senate and seeing at the parties and all that kind of stuff. So so for those fans who've been missing that, you did get that this week.
And I also we'll say like Saw Gerrera's group, I felt was like such an amalgamation of different species, and I think that was the first time I was like, oh, we do have aliens that are in this in this galaxy, because everywhere else that they went, it was just like human. I'm like, man, what's going on here?
Which is
Yeah.
funny because, according to Star Wars lore, the aliens are the ones that are getting the most screwed from the Empire. So you'd think they would make up the majority of the rebellion.
Yeah. For sure.
I
For sure.
I know we kind of already harped on this a little bit, but um the big stuff to
Mm,
me was just so fascinating this
yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Um at first I was thinking to myself, like when we first see her, she sees Dr. Gorst again, and I'm like, man, she's still thinking about this guy. And on top of that, she's still dealing with the trauma of, the attack that she had a year ago. But then now it is something else on her plate. And at first it was, they clearly mean for it to have you wonder what happened to this particular Imperial officer, or like
Mhm.
who this Imperial officer was. But it is one of those things of like, they clearly got their hands dirty. She clearly feels some type of way about it. The way that she was talking, or Dr. Gorst was talking, it it felt almost like she felt like she was in his shoes, in the sense of like being on the opposite foot,
Mhm.
of like Dr. Gorst trying to have her in her
Yeah.
head, like give her a reason as to why they did this, in the sense of like her now feeling like she killed somebody, or she tortured somebody in that regard. So she almost feels like they're kind of in the same shoes, and it feels like that's something
Yeah.
that she's kind of struggling with a little bit. But then to see it to the point of where she's clearly taking some medication to make her
Mhm.
feel, to numb herself, sort of thing. There was a
Yeah.
part of me that was like, are these the death sticks? Are these like the from
Yeah.
like Attack of the Clones? I was like, is this like part of it? Is this what she's kind of taking to numb her pain, sort of thing? Um, so I am curious if that's something that's gonna be explored. I wonder if the death of Dr. Gorst is gonna be like a redemption for her, in that sense, that she's kind of gotten that out of her way and now she's sort of a new woman, or is that something that's going to sort of continue to come up as an issue and sort of kind of cost her down the road? But
Mhm.
it is one of those situations where I was like, I can see, after everything that she's been through, why she would go down this particular path. And it was just kind of crazy to see what it did to her, sort of thing. But I don't know, I just thought it was a really fascinating
Yeah.
insight in regards to what trauma can really do and lead a person to.
I'm most curious to see if she still takes it in the
Mhm.
next set of
Right.
episodes, or if killing the doctor was exactly what she needed to do to finally be able to begin the healing process.
Mhm.
Because on the one hand, like I could kind of see like that being the case of like, okay, knowing this person is still out there doing stuff to it is what's gonna keep me up. But on the other hand, it's very much something that Star Wars has never tried to, like, revenge is just something that Star Wars has always tried to say is a bad thing. So I don't necessarily seeing it being like all like kind of smooth sailing from there. I do see her also probably doing with now new regret in the idea, or not regret necessarily, but like kind of just having a new kind of like trauma, I guess you could say, because now she's taken a life out of revenge. Even though it was part of a mission, it definitely was personal for her when she did that to him. And so I'm wondering if that's going to be something that screws with her and causes her to either relapse or continue using drugs, depending on how they write it. But that's the main thing that I'm really curious about with her
Yeah.
character, is where she's going to be in the next 3 episodes.
Same. Same. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I really don't have much more to add than you guys both pretty much hit my thoughts. Um, with
Oh yeah.
regards to that. But I'm glad you went back to Bix, because that was I did. I was, her reaction with the dreams, and as I guess her losing herself, even to your point, Adam, like, is was it really necessary? Was because I think she even questions Cassian. Was it really necessary
To kill him.
to
Mhm.
kill him
Yeah.
because they saw him? So it's yeah.
And I love how we don't know, because we weren't there. We don't know what the
Mhm.
Imperial soldier saw, what he thought he saw. So I kind of love that, we want to believe that he had no other choice, but we don't know. And I love
Mhm.
that.
But you know what's crazy? I mean, and that's where the paranoia in these couple of episodes really come from. You know, like she has a line in here where it's just like, you know, like I can't remember if she said like we'll win this battle of going grocery shopping or finding dinner. Like the mission
Yeah,
is dinner or something like that, right? Like
yeah,
just try, like chill out, buddy. You know, like I know he's looking around at cameras and stuff to see if people are looking at him, sort of thing. And it is one of those things, I guess, like when you are in the middle of war or you know that you're part of this rebellion, like you gotta sort of protect your ass a little bit because you just never know who's watching, who's gonna kind of come for you at any minute. And just to kind of talk about the parallels again in that sense, I mean, we have people that go out on protests right now that wear glasses and masks because of the idea that they don't want people to find out who they are or like come after them or whatever the case may be. And that feels very much like Cassian at this point too. Is either like we can't take any chances out there.
yeah,
If they just look at us sideways or they see our face, certainly got to shoot them or kill them sort of mentality. And
yeah,
yeah, it definitely put their relationship at a little bit of a dilemma in this week. And I really appreciated the Bixen Andor stuff we got. I thought it was really
yeah.
really great, these 3 episodes.
Mhm.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I felt overall, yeah, I think the balance of these stories this week felt a lot more equal than I would say the first batch.
Yeah, it felt like they were
Even
properly
this
building
last
up
one.
to something. It's like
Yeah,
every little relationship that was built, every little nugget of spy espionage stuff that was sort of set up within the first 2 episodes, I thought all really paid off for the culmination of episode 6 here. I thought it was really crafted beautifully.
yeah,
Um, Real quick, if you guys have any other pros, oh, did I any other pros or cons from these 3 weeks episodes at all? Anything that you weren't a fan of that you were really impressed with? I will say one of the pros. I don't think I have my headline thing to post up here. I was a big fan of the final editing work. I think I
mm,
mentioned it briefly in here. Um, the editing work really really helped in regards to
yeah,
building the tension for the mission, the back and forth. The idea that homegirl was trying to get that transmitter out, so the fact that her hands were
mhm,
bleeding was kind of crazy to me.
Mhm.
yeah,
But yeah, the tension was incredible, and a lot of that goes to the great
yeah.
editing work that they had for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The editing, because Sarah and I on our show last week, we were talking about the editing at the end of the third episode and the cut, they were trying to do the juxtaposition between the party at the end and the events
Oh
there on the wheat planet. And the first time I watched it, it didn't bother me, but the second time, and Sarah brought this up, it took her out.
yeah.
The editing, the TikTok editing that was done at that with that sequence, and I agree with her. So I agree with you. This week the editing was much tighter. The thing that I think's been the most, what for me, what's been underappreciated about this show is the score.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's my highlight for me. This just throughout. I mean, I've started listening to it just on my Spotify, just the score of this show. And each, like, I always like listen to the tone of when the opening credit happens to see what kind of mood they're trying to set with, with
Uh-huh.
with each one. Because if you notice, every time each episode has a different, they have the crescendo is always the same, but that lead up is always just sometimes very different, sometimes subtly different. But to me, that's something that has not been mentioned enough about this show, which is this score.
Well, I thought what was cool too is maybe it was episode 4 when they are doing maybe it was during the Andor logo reveal, or
Mhm.
maybe it was shortly after that, but how they had the radio signal
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
playing
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
thing. I
Yeah.
thought that was a really great lead
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
episode, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that, yeah.
I do have one. I don't even know if I'd fully call it a con. I'd call it more of a confusion type of thing. But I don't know. I thought it was weird that they recast Bail
Oh,
Organa.
Bale. Yes, let's talk
I
about Bale.
almost
Yeah.
forgot. I almost forgot to bring that up. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
because we had the original actor Jimmy
Jimmy
Smits.
Smits.
Schmitz.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came back for Obi-Wan and Rogue One. So I am kind of curious why he they weren't able to get him for this
I,
show.
I think it honestly, I think this was a scheduling glitch because I don't know. I think it was, and this is just me thinking out loud, but nothing to confirm it. But I want to say with the production schedule, the production of Andor got interrupted by the strikes. So,
You're right. Hey, I have a
so
quote if you want.
yeah,
I just looked it up. It says while discussing the latest episode with Entertainment Weekly, Tony Gilroy opened up about it. He says we couldn't work it out. The scheduling didn't work
yeah,
out. We really
Okay.
tried hard, but Smith wasn't available and
yeah,
couldn't make it, which is kind of crazy to me because I mean you're right. It could be scheduling. It could have been the COVID thing or whatever the case may be. But I
yeah.
was like, bro literally had 5 seconds on screen. Like the man literally had maybe two
But I'm glad
lines.
you, yeah, but I'm glad you brought that up too because I did see where Tony Gilroy was like, because they're having to do the recast, he did it in this batch of episodes so they could just rip the band-aid off. So the folk, so clearly Belagarn, we know that he has a much more significant role as the story progresses. So I think the idea was do it here at this party, just get it out, just get the
Oh,
recast
Mm.
out of the
so
way.
you think he'll be in more episodes? Is that what you
So
think?
he'll be in episode, yeah.
Okay,
So
okay, okay.
as we get to two, I
Gotcha.
guess that'll be two BBY and then one BBY, and we'll, it won't be we won't the discourse won't
Makes
be
sense.
why is where's Jimmy Smits? Why is Benjamin Bratt here?
That
Um,
that makes sense. I was like,
yeah,
if this is a scheduling conflict for just this scene, like, bro, you
yeah,
can
Could have
stop by
just
the
took it
you
out.
could yeah, you
yeah,
can just come
no,
you can come
yeah,
come by the studio and real quick to help us out here in that sense. But that makes sense. But I will say, if you are going to get anybody to replace Jimmy Smith, man, Benjamin Bratt's
yeah,
incredible, bro.
yeah.
He's
He
such
was
an
good.
incredible actor. So I'm really looking
Yeah,
forward to seeing what he can do
yeah.
with him. And I guess this does open up a bigger case of like, how do we feel about recasting in Star Wars? Should we
Mhm.
do it? Should we not? What's up, Kiki and Luca?
I'm not against recasting, honestly, especially if you want
Yeah.
to go through more. I would prefer they recast Luke Skywalker than have another CG Mark Hamill in Ahsoka
Mhm.
or The Mandalorian. I would just like them to recast, like, they've been doing it with Strange New Worlds, and I think like the new cast, for the most part, a lot of people are really liking them. So I think they could do the same thing with Star Wars. I don't
Yeah.
see why not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, clearly they're having to do it in Ahsoka due to the death of Ray Stevenson with Balin. I can't remember the name of the actor right now who's taking up Balin's role, but yeah, the recast didn't bother me. I think I even like dropped it last week whenever we were discussing the show that Benjamin Bratt was going to be around, but yeah, I mean, whether it's money, as Kiki said, or the scheduling conflict, this this is a too pivotal character, quite frankly, to not be around
During this time, man.
during this time period. I mean, the whole, all it's all about, Alderaan was like, the test for the Death Star. So you got to have Bail Organa there around. You can't not have him.
Mhm.
Shout out to Crystal for certainly coming through. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. I was thinking about you, Crystal, while I was watching these episodes, and all the Bix and Cassie and stuff. Like when Bix comes back home and they're like having that moment and they're touching each other's hands. I was like, I know Crystal's swooning right now. I know she's sweating over there. This is like the it stuff for her. So I was like, I know she's loving this the Bix and
Yeah,
Cassie and stuff here real quick. But
for
yeah,
sure.
man, I am open to recasting. Kiki does say, "Oh, it's hard to recast Mark Hamill." I totally get it, but
Mhm.
I think we need to, man. I think we
At
need
some
to.
point, yeah.
I think there's just
Unfortunately,
so much rich material. There we go. I knew it. Oh my God, the yearning. Yeah, see, I knew Crystal would
all
love
right.
that.
The council's together, even though Crystal's in the chat. But hey, the council's all represented.
Yeah,
I
I'm
just
glad.
speaking of Crystal, I thought about the costuming too and the makeup. The costume with
At the
when
party.
Cassian. the party, but also when Cassian was going to Ghorman. I mean, he
Oh,
just
that was a tight
me. I
suit,
that cleaned
bro.
up. I mean, the cape,
Yeah. The hair was
the
nice.
hair. Yeah, he was
Bro.
like, yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, all right, all right,
We
Diego,
might
I'll
have
see you.
one of us might have to cosplay him at next celebration or something, bro.
For sure, for sure.
I did love that.
Yeah.
Kiki says all the women in Andor are organically badass. Yeah, they really are, man. They really are.
Yeah.
I'm glad that Cinta and Val got the opportunity to shine here a little bit in this week's episode. I was wondering like when Val especially was like when she was really gonna get her hands dirty sort of thing. But yeah, I was a really big fan. Crystal says the costumes were top notch. Yeah, I definitely agree. Everything was looking great in this week's episode. But yeah, if anything, I'm looking forward to the next 3 episodes. I will say this was like, while I appreciated the first 3 episodes, this felt very much like a complete arc that they were trying to tell. And I'm kind of hoping that this momentum kind of carries over for the next 6. But yeah, guys, it is that time. It is report card time. We're gonna grade this not per episode, but as a whole. This arc, episodes 4 through 6 here. If you had to take this report card home to your parents, you'd be like, "Mom, look what they scored Andor this week. Aren't you proud of me?" And you open it up. What score are you giving Andor episodes 4 through 6? Anybody want to go first? Stuart, Will?
It's going to be the same as last week for me. 95 A, you know.
Okay, you're going 95. All right, yeah. Not too bad. What about you guys said 95, Stuart?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and put that calculator 95. Okay, and what about you, Will?
Yeah, this week for me is 96. I really I even like as soon as I got done watching last night, I messaged our podcast partner Sarah. I was like, damn good episodes. Can't wait to talk with you about them. This batch was I fully got back into fully immersed in the Andor world with this batch of episodes.
Yeah, I really didn't have too many issues with it. Could I have had maybe a little bit more action? Sure. But like at the sacrifice of the great like character work and the building and fantastic momentum and stuff, the spy espionage, the questioning who's on whose side, like I was truly invested in here this week. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with a 90. I'm probably gonna go with the 96 on this one myself too. Did I calculate Stewart's? I did calculate Stewart's last time, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Crystal
said 93.
She's gonna give us a 93. Okay. Plus 93. All right, we're gonna divide that by 4, and we're sitting at a 95. So we're at another A here this week.
Heck yes.
All right, so we're at another A here. That works, man. That works. You know, I will say I am one of those people where I'm like, man, I really wish that this episode got an A plus, but you know, I love the idea that this is truly, it's not just mine. It's truly an average of how everybody felt about this episode. And I feel like that's a very fair score for this week for sure. So yeah, 90. Crystal says, not me having the lowest score. Yeah, that was me last week. I think that was me last week. So I feel your pain. But yeah, 95 this week. So back-to-back A's. Fantastic series so far. We'll see. We're halfway through.
Oh my gosh, already.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm glad, now one other thing I know last week I said, I was wondering what was going to be my judgment about the bunched episodes. And I do like it because I do think it would have been hard. Like, for example, episode 2 last week, it would have been hard to like, if that was a week-to-week release.
A standalone thing.
A standalone thing. I think the batches do work. They are like 4 hour and a half long or so movies.
I will say I was rushing to watch these this week though. I didn't get a chance to watch it Tuesday. I started watching Wednesday. I got 1 episode done Wednesday and I had to watch 2 episodes today before the show. I was like trying to cram all this in, take notes and stuff, get a nice little summary going. Yeah, it was tough, man. It was tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say this is a little off topic, but I reviewed the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man
Mm,
animated series on the channel, and that had a similar release schedule in the sense of like 3 episodes, 2 episodes,
mhm,
3 episodes, sort of thing. And while at first I was like, why did they release these this way? When you watch the episodes, it really makes perfect sense from like a narrative perspective. So the idea that they went this route, as much as I would love to talk about them on a weekly basis, I think you're right. I think standalone wise, there might be some episodes that might come across a little weak, but when you batch them all together like this and have a full narrative that you're trying to tell, yeah, the momentum really worked, at least especially for this week.
mhm.
Crystal says I will be there next week. Yeah, and I told Stuart to tell his boss he ain't coming in. He ain't coming in.
Gonna make sure of it.
So I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see. I hope I don't get him fired. But yeah. But guys, thank you so much, man, for certainly joining us once again for a brand new review for Andor episodes 4 through 6. We will be back live next Thursday at 10 p.m. Central Time. So certainly join us then. Mark your calendars, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification. So when we do go live, you guys will certainly be notified. But before we go out, let me do a little bit of a promo time here. Will, if people want to
Yep.
find you on social media, man, where can they find you?
Yes, you can find me. You see there at Will and Polk is my personal handle on all the socials. You can find us at Cena Nerd on most of the socials except for Instagram and Twitter, where Instagram and Threads, whereas scene_n_nerd. Follow our website. We're covering The Last of Us, and we will be covering Andor episodes 4 through 6 on our podcast, which we're recording next Tuesday night next week. And we'll be also recording a special edition right before I jump on with you guys of our Thunderbolts review next Thursday night. So,
Nice. Okay.
It's gonna be a busy pod night for me next Thursday. But please join it. Please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks again for having me on the show.
As always, Will, always great having you here and your thoughts for sure. Hopefully, I get the opportunity. I'm trying to see Thunderbolts by Saturday at the latest, man, because I'm hearing really great things about it. And I still have not watched episode 3 of The Last of Us yet. I've been managing to stay away from spoilers and stuff, so I'm trying to. I'm gonna try and knock that out here within the next day or two. Stuart, if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you, buddy?
You guys can find me at TurboStew01 over on Twitter, or sorry, not Twitter, on Instagram and on Letterboxd.
And you guys can follow us everywhere up here at A Plus Opinions. Very active everywhere on social media. We also have a TikTok at Hero Reports if you want to check us out there. But mostly find us on Twitter. Very active over on our Facebook page and here on our channel. Crystal, thank you so much for certainly joining us. She says, thank you, Jedi Council. I have been thinking about podcast names or, show names for our Star Wars. I had Google Gemini help me out a little bit with this one. I'm still going to do some more brainstorming here. But one of them that came up, and nobody take this, copyright. I'm copywriting this right now. Don't nobody take this. One of them that came up was Alderaan Places. Alderaan Places podcast or was it Alderaan Places or Alderaan? Yeah, something like that. Alderaan Places podcast, a Star Wars podcast or something like that. I think it was what it was. Alderaan Places, a Star Wars podcast. I thought that was kind of catchy, but I hadn't heard that one before. But I'm sure there's plenty. There was like a Rebel Roundtable, I think was another one. So I don't know. I'm still brainstorming. I'll figure out some other ones though.
Has Jedi Knights of the Round Table been taken?
I haven't looked that one up yet. But yeah, let's keep thinking. But yeah, guys, look, we'll see you guys next weekend. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. In the meantime, do us a big favor, as always, guys. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. May the Force be with you. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.